Yo guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we're going to be using the benchmark tool for Black Myth Wukong on PC, running it with my overclocked MSI Vanguard RTX 5090 graphics card and Ryzen 9 9950X 3D CPU. So firstly, as always, I'll start off with showing you the graphics settings we're going to be currently using. So running a resolution of 3840 by 2160 on my 4K 134Hz display. No frame rate cap, no VSync, and we're going to run the DLSS quality mode. We're going to set it to 70. Actually, we'll do it 68. And no frame generation, full ray tracing turned on. Ray tracing level set to very high. And all the advanced graphics settings all cinematic preset. So we're going to go ahead and run the setting here. And so we'll do 4K DLSS quality mode. We'll see how that runs. And then we'll try out 4K native. And then we'll try out 1440p and 1080p native resolutions. Once the benchmark gets started here, I will reset the benchmark MSI Afterburner stats, and we'll see how each setting runs. But hopefully you guys enjoy. I'll try to mention some comments as the benchmark proceeds, and we'll take things from there. Reset the Afterburner. Now, I've had this title for a while. I never really progressed much in the storyline. I don't know why. It just seems like it's just one of those games where I just couldn't fully get myself into it, even though I know it is an interesting title. But one of these days I'd like to progress further in the storyline. But for now we're just going to use the benchmark tool to see how its scene renders and plays on the 5090 graphics card. And we'll take things from there. Looks like the GPU is maintaining a clock speed of 3120 MHz, pulling between 490 and 512 watts. Memory chilled at 64 degrees Celsius. And the Ryzen 9 just using about 7 or 8% CPU utilization, pulling about 73 watts. I remember when this game first came out, I was on the 4090 and it absolutely destroyed that graphics card at native resolution. It was like, I can't remember exact FPS, but I think it was around like 25 or lower 4K native, if I remember correctly, but it was brutally heavy. And I don't think it ran as good at launch than it does now, but it is still a very heavy benchmark to run, but even on the 5090 top dog graphics card. But visually it is nice. It has got some nice ray tracing effects, and it's got a nice atmosphere, like the nature-esque vibes. Beautiful landscapes, terrain, and foliage. Some stutters there I've been noticing in that scene there. We've got about 4 or 5 stutters. We're maintaining an average of 59 FPS, 1% low sitting at 49. And a max at 69 FPS. And again, this is 4K DLSS quality mode, so we'll try 4K native on the next benchmark run. So 59 FPS average, 1% low sitting at 49, max FPS is 70 at 4K DLSS quality mode. Alright, we'll get loaded back up here and we will try 4K native now. So that's going to be... Just want to make sure there's no like native resolution, because he just does it to 100%. Now I know in some games, even when you force DLA, it isn't necessarily running 100% native, but we'll see if it works. See how it runs. And we'll benchmark 4K native. Now I know in the other game that's just like this, Wu Chang Falling Feathers, 4K native also isn't really fully running native, but we'll see what kind of FPS we get here. Reset the Afterburner. Move the mouse cursor out of the way. And I can notice that the GPU is using more power now because we're running native resolution. This is a heavier setting to run. You can tell the smoothness is not as good. You just look at the frame timing, milliseconds, it's like a lot higher. So DLSS quality mode definitely is needed for 4K at minimum. I mean, you could just tell by looking at the framing, the motion, it just looks a little bit less smooth. And I know there's available frame generation. I'm not going to use that because I know that's just going to bring down the 1% lows, so I'm just going to stick with native resolution and DLSS modes without frame generation. Because I know the frame generation, for some of these games, all it really does is just increase the input lag and lowers the 1% low, so I'm not going to focus on frame generation. I may test at least one setting towards the end, but I'm not going to really focus too much on frame generation. Just not a huge fan of it. Just my personal take. It is a cool technology, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it just messes with the gaming experience depending on how the game runs. Like at native resolution, I would never run it for sure because of the FPS we get here at native. Again, love those ambient nature vibes, the sounds, the views. So it looks like 4K native, 32 FPS average, 1% lossing at 27, max FPS at 38. So yeah, it goes to show you this engine is very heavy to run at native resolutions. No doubt. Okay, so now let's want to make sure we're still at native, and let's go to 2560 by 1440p. And make sure that the DLSS is still a super, DLA. No frame generation. So we'll test 1440p native, and then we'll test 1440p DLSS quality mode, and we'll finish it off with 1080p native, and then we may just throw in one frame generation benchmark just for the hell of it, even though I'm not a huge fan of it. But I think ideally on this title, if you do want to play at 4K, you probably want to use 4K with balance mode. I think that would probably bring you enough FPS to put things above 60 FPS and just make things much more playable. And again, like I said, you can use frame generation, but I am just not the huge fan of it. Just my personal take. I'm just not a huge fan of it, you know? If perhaps they improve it and make it so the 1% lows don't get lowered, maybe it'll be more of a nicer function to use, but in a lot of these games, especially online multiplayer games, you would never want to use it generally. It's just going to mess with your input lag and bringing down your overall 1% lows, which I already had mentioned earlier. It's funny, every time you watch this, you'll see something new that you may have not seen last time, because there's so many details, you know, there's so many different scenes and so many different images that if you just look around in your entire screen, you can see so much more. Like, it's almost like every single time you'll see something new, which is kind of cool if you really look around and appreciate the visuals, you know? And even 1440p, I think it still looks pretty presentable. A little bit more grainier in my 4K screen, but pretty clean overall. So 4K DLSS quad mode definitely does help enhance the image when lowering down to 1440p render resolution. Okay, so 1440p native, average 59 FPS, 1% low at 50, max FPS 71. So not too bad, pretty good playable setting there. Not bad at all. Alright. Now we'll enable DLSS quality mode at 1440p, and then we'll finish it off with 1080p, and then like I said, I might throw in one setting with frame generation. Alright, so we're going to set this to 68. And we'll go ahead and benchmark 1440p with DLSS Ultimate. And then once we get loaded here, I'll reset the afterburner stats. So yeah, this would be kind of like how 4K with balanced mode would probably run at, since it's a similar resolution setting. So it'll probably put you around 100 FPS, I think. Which I think is a good setting overall to make things playable well above 60. Again, a little bit grainy on my screen, but not too bad for what it is. The upscaling, no doubt, does help clean up the image, which is why they have it. Because normally this would be like running 1080p. Like this time I noticed more of the sounds of the characters. I didn't really notice that as much in the first few runs. Probably because I was talking during the scene, but just goes to show you when you put your brain in another area of the video, you'll take in more details that you may miss the last time. I remember this scene pretty well, going between the rocks here and the tree. Little temple entrance or whatever here. Sound of the owls. The wind. Again, those nature-esque vibes. Okay, so 1440p with DLSS quality mode, we average a 94 FPS, 1% low at 74, max FPS at 113. So yeah, not too bad. I think that would be kind of like playing 4K balanced mode probably. Probably give you a similar FPS there. Alright, we're going to finish things off with 1080p, and then I'm going to throw in one setting with frame generation, just so people who want to see it, frame generation, can see it. Alright, so we'll bring that up to 100% native resolution, and we'll lower down to 1080p. So 1920 by 1080p. Let me double check. Okay, 100%. Benchmark. Once you get loaded here, I'll reset the afterburner. And then we'll probably finish off with 4K balanced mode with frame generation. Actually, I'll do 4K DLSS quality mode with frame generation. We'll see how that runs. I'll decide. Will be better. We want to maintain a higher FPS when using frame generation. That way we don't get issues with running it. And I'll tell you what, even 1080p with no upscaling, just native resolution rendering, The image still looks pretty clear. It's a little bit blurry some areas, but still very much so presentable. I just think there was a time back in the day when all the games we would play at would be like, well, back then, like 1080p would be like max settings, like, you know, many, many years back. Like when the original Crisis came out. Like being able to do that game at 1080p was like super amazing. And now here we are running like 4K and 8K resolutions on some games. It's just really amazing to think how much the graphical performance of hardware have improved. Now I think with the 5090 there wasn't a huge jump in performance over the 4090, like as much of an improvement as it was going from the 3090 to 4090. And the main issue was they didn't really decrease the die size. They just threw in really fast GDR7 memory, threw as much power as possible, 600 watts, and really, that's really what they did. Just a whole bunch of memory bandwidth, bunch of power, and somewhat higher clock speeds. That's really all they did with the 50 series. And for that reason, it really didn't show that significant jump in performance as the previous generations, unfortunately. It looks like 1080p native, average 85 FPS, 1% low setting at 68, max FPS of 102. So yeah, not too bad. A little bit grainy here at this last final image, but not bad for what it is. Alright, we'll finish off here 4K DLSS quality mode with frame generation. And then I think that will be the end of the benchmark. Let's go to 4K. And we'll leave this at 68. And we'll use frame generation. And then, like I said, this will be our last one. So we'll see how this DLSS quality mode with frame generation runs. And that'll close out the video benchmark. Reset the operator. And then just pay attention to those 1% lows. They are going to be lower, which is the unfortunate side effect of running frame generation. But we'll see how it runs. Maybe it'll maintain. Yeah, so far I'm setting a 1% low 87, so it is working a little bit better than expected. Image clarity looks good, very clean, crisp details. Thanks to the NVIDIA upscaling technology. So yeah, not too bad. It actually didn't do so bad. Frame time and graph looking pretty good so far. 9.4 to 9.6 milliseconds. Pretty good, considering the use of frame generation. Just that sound of the wind. Yeah, not too bad. Averaged of 98 FPS, 4K DLSS quality with frame generation, 1% low setting at 85, max FPS of 114. So not too bad. Yeah, I'll take it. It ran better than I thought. Okay, guys, so I'm going to wrap up the video here. Stay tuned tomorrow. We are going to be testing out Gears of War Reloaded, so stay tuned for that video, hopefully sometime in the morning when the game does get officially released. And we'll take things from there. But if you did enjoy the video, do give this video a like. If you want to see more content like this, more RTX 5090 gaming benchmarks, along with my Ryzen 9 9950X 3D CPU, feel free to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Appreciate all the support. Again, that brings you Black Myth Wukong with the benchmark tool. And thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.